بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. We're also streaming it live on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and of course via our website emanchannel.tv. Humble reminder, do like, share, comment and subscribe to all our platforms including our official Facebook page, YouTube channel, all the other necessary platforms including our Instagram and of course our Twitter. And was I live? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Ask Eman, broadcasted live from the London studio of Eman Channel on Sky 757. We're also streaming it live via our website emanchannel.tv and of course via our official YouTube channel and of course our Facebook page. 0203 515 0757, our studio number. 07916841483, our WhatsApp number. Humble reminder, please do call in live into the studio, and of course international viewers can use the WhatsApp number to call in live into the studio, and of course our priority and preference will always be given to the callers who call in live into the studio. And I'd like to kindly request, whenever anyone calls in, please if you can put the TV volume down and speak directly using the phone. I'm your host Qamarul Islam. Joining us tonight none other than Shaykh Abid Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair for giving us your valuable time. Now, before we move on to the question, let's start our discussion. I'm sure you have heard yesterday the Imam of Darul Ummah, Shedwell, the head office or the headquarter, passed away. We're talking about Shaykh Maulana Abu Ahmad Hifzur Rahman, an alim, person who has devoted his life, served the community for the last 18 years doing tafasir and a lot of other Islamic activities and halaqas. Now the scholar, the renowned scholar within the community has passed away. What lesson as general public do we learn whenever we hear the passing away of renowned scholars?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. After extolling and praising God Almighty and asking Him to send His peace and blessings and benedictions upon His prophets, the last of whom is Muhammad, peace upon him and upon his family and companions. To proceed, we begin by saying the statement taught by God Almighty when we hear of such news, to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And to God we are all returning, and from Him we have all been, we came. So I say that actually having been elsewhere over recent days, and I hadn't heard this news, the passing away of any scholar and contributor to community well-being, development, education, and enlightenment, and spreading the message of goodness and well-being and peace is something which is always going to be a source of great sadness, and it's tragic. And we're reminded of the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which the scholars describe as referring to, amongst other things, the loss of scholars. It's as if the earth kind of almost shrinks in its size, obviously not literally, but the sense of there's actually an expanse of the earth. It doesn't feel the same any further. Moreover, we have the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says, Inna Allah that indeed Allah does not lift up knowledge just by lifting it up, but rather it is by the lifting up of scholars one by one, until only what's left are those who are less learned and ignorant. So what we should really remember and think of when we hear of the passing of any person, let alone someone who's been giving contributions to the community and Muslim community and the wider community en masse, is to, number one, to remember the temporal nature of this world. Number two is to thank God for having given us the opportunity of benefiting and our society from benefiting from the imparting of such erudition and wisdom, as one would expect from the likes of whom you mentioned, Brother Qamarul. But then number three, to also ask ourselves, given our own finite time on earth, what are we doing to try and give back? What are we doing to try and be a source of blessings and mercy for all those around us? And I'd lastly end by stating that we should also specifically, having mentioned the broad benefit that we should be looking at and auditing ourselves, are we being the better versions of ourselves? But specifically, are we trying to actually also take some people with talent from our own kids and encourage them, alongside, of course, excelling in their dunyawi, normal mainstream education? They should also be excelling in Islam, and some of them should even, more able ones, should consider going into it in a full-time capacity, and it should be something that's supported, funded, and taken such that they can really excel and develop this for the new generations to come in a way which is in consonance with the needs of the time, the place that they find themselves in, their home, their home country, UK. It needs to actually be in a way which matches and meets the needs of the time and the place, and Allah knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan for that term. Now, with this, I also would like to continue. Recently, we have seen a lot of young people are passing away due to just without any major illnesses. It could be a sudden heart attack. Now, we live in a time where there is a misconception that people will normally die at the age, at a later stage of their life, at the last stage of their life, with regards to when it comes to death. It's like when you're old. Now, as Muslim, we know that's not the reality. We know we should all be prepared because we don't know when our last time will be on this earth. Now, what advice would you give, especially young individuals that think later in their life will, inshallah, return back to Islam or faith or abandon sins, etc.? What message do you have?
Well, that's quite true. That unfortunately, we as human beings, when we lose sight of godliness, one of the consequences of that is we start taking things for granted. And this sort of carelessness can extend to even taking for granted our own lives. We think it's something that's dispensable, that we can use it and abuse it as we like. And also that we think that we almost become the masters of our own destiny, and not in a good sense of the word. Rather thinking that, you know what, we'll decide when we want to go to God. As though it's something we can always decide to do. Whereas in reality, as we all know, life is temporal. It is transient, and it is fleeting, and there's an unpredictability about it, and even there is a fragility that's embedded within the nature of the human existence. And that itself has been the object of much consideration and deliberation of thinkers, philosophers over the centuries, in fact. And really, it's been one of the sources of even existential angst for many people. In truth, it is the folly of youth to actually think that, and even of those who are not so young, to think that, you know what, we can come revisit this issue tomorrow or next month or next year. Rather, tomorrow is not promised to anyone. In addition, I would say one other point, though. Let's just go on the basis that this presumption was actually right. Of course, it's not right, but had it been, something that could be forgiven, understood. How about this? How do we accept for ourselves to live in a path which is oblivious, or a lifestyle which is oblivious of our true reality and of us being the best version or better version of ourselves, and we spend years like that? How would we end up accepting to miss out on the huge opportunity of knowing God, of receiving multiplied blessings and grace within our lives, and actually of getting more, if you like, even real estate within Jannah? So really, the impetus should be far, far, far greater and much more urgent than we often treat it. The Prophet says, "Al-Jannah aqrabu ila ahadikum min shiraki na'li," that both paradise and hellfire are closer to each one of you than even the laces on your shoes. So the matter is, the stakes are high and life is short. And we need to try and make the most of this opportunity. In fact, if there's time, I'd add the process. And he said, "اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس." Seize the benefit of 5 things before. حياة قبل موتك. Your life before you die. So these are things which can easily slip from one to another. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan for that, Sheikh. Now we have literally limited time, less than 1.5 minutes. See if we can take this question and get it fully answered. Otherwise, inshallah, the next segment will complete. So the caller is asking, or the viewer is asking, Assalamu alaikum. We know and understand there's more reward in praying sunnah or nafil at home. If you're in another country, can you pray sunnah at your hotel or in another person's house where you are staying the sunnah, and will it still be the same reward that you would normally get if when you prayed at home locally? Your thoughts, Sheikh?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for your question, and wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. In response to your question, the answer is yes, absolutely. It's true that the most superior way of praying your sunnah ordinarily, your supererogatory prayers, would be at home rather than at the mosque, unless, of course, for tahiyyat al-masjid purposes. However, if there's a reason which impedes you from being able to do that, then most likely praying at the mosque or at the musalla is something which is still agreed upon. It's agreed upon that it's acceptable. It's agreed upon that it's something which is valid. And inshallah ta'ala, Allah knows what is within yourselves. Wallahu ya'lamu al-mufsida min al-muslih. He knows that you don't intend anything, but actually just to be able to perform your sunnah, and that's fine. And the Prophet himself on occasions had prayed in the masjid his sunnah as well, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan for that perfect timing, my dear viewers. If you've just tuned in, you're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. It's time for a short break. Thank you very much for sending us your questions. And inshallah, we'll try our level best to take as many questions as possible in the next couple of segments. So don't go anywhere. Do stay tuned with us. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel. We're back in a few moments. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Iman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757 with Shaykh Abid Khan. 0203 515 0757, our studio number. 079 our WhatsApp number. Now, once again, I'd like to remind our viewers, please do like, share, comment, and subscribe to all our platforms, including our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, Twitter, or now known as X, and of course, do like our Instagram page too. Before we move on to our next question, I'd like to, in the first segment, we had a question with regards to praying sunnah or nawafil at home when completing the Fard Salah in the mosque. The follow-up question, Sheikh, we've just received, and I'd like to ask you, is that what about while we are at work? Can we pray in the masjid if we have the time to catch the jama'ah in the masjid, if there is one available next to our workplace, and return to our workplace and pray sunnah? Will that be of the same category when it comes to getting the reward at home?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This issue of where a person prays while at work is one which is subject to some further discussion. So basically, people have different arrangements with their workplace. So you may have anything ranging from a very testing sort of workplace. I don't know, for example, you're a frontline worker, immediate services. You work in the NHS, you work for the police, you work for, as a as part of the fire brigade service, or anything similar to that nature. You're in charge of taking care of people who are vulnerable. Such circumstances have certain arrangements in place. So if you're, for example, at the station, but you have that latitude shown to you, that's one sort of scenario. Another sort of scenario is, however, where you run your own business, or you have a line manager, the owner of the company, who's your line manager, is also sympathetic to your religious sensibilities, or maybe even shares your religious sensibilities. Under those circumstances, the latter ones, you'd be able to go out and pray. But more often than not, sometimes if you're speaking, let's say, within certain pockets within the city of London, you may find that actually, after a certain point of seniority, it's just down to you to try and deliver the goods, so to speak, to work and to really deliver a high-quality project management experience for the people for whom you're a consultant, for example. In that instance, how you arrange and organize your time is up to you. However, you need to make sure you do good by your contractual hours, and that you do good by your contractual obligations. And it would be advisable, of course, for in general terms, for a person to speak with their line manager and their colleagues, so that no one thinks that you're kind of being someone who's lackadaisical about your work. Just misunderstandings like that are unnecessary. They cause headaches to people, and actually they may even create a sense of unfavorable reputation for those who are religiously minded. But otherwise, yes, absolutely. Where you spend your lunch break would, under most circumstances, I imagine, would be up to you. So if you want to pray your salah at the masjid at Dhuhr time and come back, as opposed to going anywhere else where others might be heading, that's massive for yourself, inshallah. And there'd only be added blessings of spending time as part of the congregational prayer, and Allah knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan for that. Now, let's move on swiftly to our next question, and it will be a generated question. And the viewer is asking, if I created a promo or an advert for a company that sells alcohol, will I be sinful for creating graphics regarding the alcohol products?
So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa barak Rasulullah. The answer to this question is that in terms of services rendered, the scholars of the four schools of thought have the following breakdown of positions. Generally speaking, you'll find that some of the scholars, such as the Maliki and others, they opine based on a principle known as Sadd al-Dhari'a, or kind of averting the means. So there's this concern about being of helping or aid, as a term would be used elsewhere in other contexts, aiding and abetting, but kind of furthering, of course, that one has ethical questions surrounding it. So they say if something is certain to cause to be aiding in something which is Islamically unacceptable, then that would not be permissible. Otherwise, it would be, if there's a doubt, then it would be makruh. Other scholars divide it between those where you're certain, where you're uncertain, and they approached it accordingly. And then you had within the Hanafi school of thought a position attributed that of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah himself, as opposed to the other voices within the madhab who also have great weight, and sometimes the madhab, the official position of the madhab, sometimes is someone else's position rather than Imam Hanifa himself, one of his students like Muhammad Hassan Shaybani or Qadhi Yusuf. But Abu Hanifa rahimahullah's own position on this is that, or that which is attributed to him, is that basically, if the work you're doing yourself is permissible, then there's no further consideration that's given in a mandatory sense, at least, to how it's going to be used. So, for example, if you're an IT programmer or you're a graphic designer, then that itself is halal work, and you're not going to be sinful for that. Of course, if you find an option which you feel more comfortable with, then that's a separate matter altogether. But if this is the only work that you have, and this is the situation you're asking about, then this is the answer that you'd find from the Hanafis, muftis in that respect. So in your own situation, perhaps the best thing to do is to ask a scholar who's qualified, and to get independent advice for your own situation, inshallah, and Allah knows best.
Okay, Jazakallahu khairan for that. Now let's move on swiftly to our next question. And Shaykh, you have touched on various madhahib there. So our brother is asking, one of the brother leads the prayer, sometime as we don't have an official imam yet. He's from the Maliki school of thought. And as far as we understand, he doesn't read the dua before the Fatiha. Is this okay? Will I be able to join Salah, Sheikh?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So yes, according to the short answer is yes, you can absolutely join the prayer, and there's no issue with that whatsoever, because the scholars are unanimous that the prayer without the dua al-istiftah, or for the dua without the opening prayer, I don't mean the opening chapter, which is when you start Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Fatiha. I'm referring to the dua Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk, or other versions such as Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khata'i. All of those du'as, the last two, the scholars are unanimous that the prayer without it is something which is a valid prayer, it's an acceptable prayer, and inshallah that's fine. However, they discuss the ruling on it. And so there are some schools which opine that it's not required, or that you shouldn't do so, and that's the Maliki school of thought. The Maliki school of thought considers it makruh to actually do dua al-istiftah in the fard prayer, and they consider it acceptable or permissible to do so in the supererogatory prayers. The other schools of thought generally recommend it being recited in the fard or the sunnah uniformly. So, and across the board, all those four schools of thought agree that it's allowed to pray, and better to pray, in fact, with congregation, regardless of whether the imam is from your same madhab or a different madhab. Because these madhahib, brothers, sisters, ladies, gentlemen, these are just merely scholarly ways of interpreting the same Quran and the same Sunnah of the same Prophet ﷺ. And so the Sahaba themselves, they differed as to how to understand certain texts, and yet they all prayed behind each other. And so by extension, all the four madhahib, they're almost like extensions of some of the Sahaba's approaches. They just kind of, if you like, developed and formalized more so. And so you as a Hanafi can pray behind a Maliki, Maliki can pray behind a Shafi'i or Maliki, Hanafi, etc., etc. And in this, there is a great deal of mercy and tolerance, and Islam we always encourage the Muslims and the viewers to be exercise and exhibit that tolerance and that embrace of other people's those opinions of the fuqaha, and Allah knows best.
We've got 1.5 minutes before we move on to another question. This is an important question here. Why do some of us, without having full knowledge of Aqidah, Sharia, different madhahib, we would like to comment on matters that are far beyond our knowledge, understanding, and experience? What advice would you give, especially when it comes to online discussion, people who are not qualified to make comments on these different issues of madhahib?
One of the oldest phenomenon is that of people seeking to rise above their rank without due effort and process. Rising high is something which is, generally speaking, only deemed good. People should try and improve, and if you're on rank on a certain designation, try and strive to be better and more qualified and more well read before so that you can speak about it, or you're at least better informed yourself. But what tends to happen is we like to be able to play it large, play it big, without actually putting in the time and the effort. And Allah says in the Quran, He warns from speaking about that which you have no knowledge of. And the Prophet ﷺ similarly said that, and he's warned in the hadith known as Hadith al-Ruwaybadah. He said that a time will come when the trustworthy is not trusted and the untrustworthy is trusted. And the truthful is seen as being untruthful, and the untruthful is treated as being truthful. And the Ruwaybadah will speak out. They said, who's Ruwaybadah? He said, the ignoble person speaking out in the public affairs. So we should be very wary, especially nowadays.
Sheikh, inshallah, I'll cut you there. We'll be back. It's time for a break. We'll be back in a few moments. Stay tuned with us. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757 with Shaykh Abid Khan. Contact details are displayed at the bottom of the screen, live on YouTube and Facebook page, and via our website emanchannel.tv. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and follow all our official Eman Channel social media platforms, including, of course, not only Facebook and YouTube, but also our Instagram page and the platform X, formerly known as Twitter. 0203 515 0757, our studio number 07916 841 483, our WhatsApp number. International viewers can use the WhatsApp number to call in live into the studio. Now, Sheikh, before we move on to the next question, you did mention about, or you were speaking about people when it comes to the different school of thoughts, a lay person, a person without full knowledge or qualification, making comments about different madhahib and spreading confusion, especially on online platforms. I'm sorry we had to go for a short break. If you can summarize for us, and then inshallah we'll swiftly move on to our next question.
Sure. So I think the risk here is that the effects and the ramifications of speaking without knowledge are always far greater than people tend to imagine. So whether you talk about something really serious, people's lives, their property, their wealth, speaking without knowledge and speaking so without knowledge publicly can lead to the statement spreading faster than wildfires, as we say, and that can affect everything from people's lives, whether they're treated civilly, whether their lives are put into danger, whether stock markets go up or down. It can lead to issues sometimes at a much simpler, less noticeable level. But for example, people then it perpetuates itself, and people treat that as being fact instead of fact checking it. And most simply, it spreads confusion. And confusion itself, it detracts from the spirits and the energy of people. People just think we don't know whether to go left or right, north or south, up or down. And that itself undermines and shows disrespect to actually this sublime scholarly tradition of Islam itself. So again, Allah says, وَأَن تَقُولُ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and not Allah without rightful knowledge.
Jazakallah khairan for that. Next question will be taken from YouTube, and the person is asking, they have got a dog inside the house. Will their dua be accepted?
So it's not for myself or any other scholar to speak about whether your du'as will be accepted. Of course, you're just aware that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that we are not meant to have dogs that are kept inside the house, but we can have, for example, a guide dog, or there's a dog for example, someone's got a dog for as a blind person, a guide dog. So a guide dog, or for farming purposes, or for guarding safety purposes, that's sort of separate scenario. But just as having a pet is something which the hadith literature speaks about in a different light.
Thank you very much. Next question. It's a good question, and hope it will help a lot of people that are watching the program now or later. If a couple are having problems and go to a mediator, with what's being discussed, will it be classified as backbiting, especially if the other party is not physically present?
So no, because what's happening is that's done by, number one, sometimes if a person's speaking with a therapist or a counselor, then it is for treating a problem specifically. Secondly, if it's also, and that could be a problem inside of one's own self, emotionally, psychologically, etc. But secondly, if it's there for the purposes of remedying problems occurring within the marriage, then it's almost choosing the mediator to mediate between yourself and your spouse. It's as if to say, you know what, our own conversations, which we ourselves ought to be able to navigate, it's just not working. We're not giving up on the relationship. We just want someone to help with the conversation. And that person cannot help with the conversation unless they know what your side is and what the other person's side is, as in what their perspectives are. and then to help bring those two ends and bring them together. So, and that can only happen through a frank and transparent conversation. So that does not constitute backbiting. But of course, you try not to be someone who is taking joy in kind of saying things about one another, because that's obviously not the sort of mindset or energy that's generally speaking, Islamically speaking, welcomed or encouraged. And Allah knows best.
Thank you very much for that. And also another important point, Sheikh, if you can clarify, we need to understand, especially those couple, if they're going through some challenges in their marital life, to address or to seek guidance from qualified individuals, not from individuals that may have heard from someone or perhaps through close contact who may not necessarily be a qualified counselor, etc. Sheikh.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think, accepting to go to someone by way of recommendation, recommendation from others, family, friends, community members, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's something which is a valid way of beginning one's research. However, that should be coupled by also looking at their qualifications, their track records, their experience, and also recommendations or references from others who aren't involved with neither yourself nor your spouse, just to see if there's some sort of bias at play. But ordinarily, always look to see that they are qualified and they're trained in their field, because we always value expertise as Muslims, and Allah knows best.
Thank you very much for that. I hope that is clear. Next question, it's finance related. If you buy a product and it costs £100, for example, and it includes 1 year or 2 year warranty with it for free. Now, if you buy an extra year warranty, whether it be 3 years or 5 years, and you have to pay extra £20 or £30 or even £50, is this permissible?
So it does depend. And it's worth sitting down with a scholar to speak and discuss the issue a bit more thoroughly. In general terms, however, the position of the majority of scholars is that they, from whom my research has found, that the majority treat that as being insurance. We all know that we do take out insurance as required for necessities or needs, such as the law requiring it for for motor insurance. However, insurance in and of itself, according to the majority of scholars from contemporary times, they've opined it's something which was not intrinsically, commercial insurance, that is, Islamic. There are others who did opine otherwise, such as Professor Zarqa. However, that is a minority position. Accordingly, this concept of going for a warranty as opposed to a guarantee, the 2 year guarantee, whether you call it a guarantee or warranty, it's in essence still a warranty. You're not paying extra to get it, or at least it's not being presented and billed as being something you're paying extra for. So that is treated as being permissible. However, to pay extra to get some sort of cover for it is basically insurance, and thus would not be acceptable according to the majority of scholars that you probably find out there, and muftis and fatwa councils. However, a happy medium may be to see if you can find the relevant firm or company who are willing, perhaps, to repackage the offer such that the extra year would be included within the price itself, or with a markup of the price, without them actually delineating and distinguishing between this much extra for 1 extra year, saying this is how much it is for and we will guarantee it 3 years. That you can have the washing machine. If any issue occurs, then you can bring it back to us and we'll look at it free of charge. That sort of thing would be permissible. As far as I'm aware, according to the mass majority, that's not me kind of suggesting to play a game or a trick with the deen of God, but rather this is something which is found in the fatwa that you will be able to peruse yourself as well. Allah knows best.
Thank you very much. Sheikh has given us a general guidance, and he did even mention for specific, it's better to sit down with a scholar, an expert in fiqh and sharia, and of course in finance, and we'll be able to give a more detailed answer, especially when papers are looked into or paperworks have been provided. Now, Sheikh, next question again related to finance. It's from YouTube. Is zakat, do we need to pay zakah on money from bursaries or scholarship from university if over nisab amount?
It would depend somewhat on a few factors. So, number one, the first factor to be borne in mind is that money from the scholarship or the bursary. Is it being paid into your account or is it paid to the school itself? So there are some institutes that actually offer a bursary and they'll actually say, give us the academic institution that you belong to, and we will pay them directly for your tuition fees, for example. If that were the case, then of course no zakat would be applicable. However, if it's being paid into your account and you have extra funds, then you would be eligible to pay zakat, and Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khairan for that. Inshallah, it's time for another break. And thank you to all our viewers who are sending us good questions. And please do continue doing or sending us the question. And we shall be, inshallah, taking the question in our next and final segment. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. Once again, 0203 515 0757. Our studio number 07916841483. Our WhatsApp number. We'll be right back in a few moments. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the last segment of Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. 0203 515 0757, our studio number 07916841483, our WhatsApp number. And inshallah now we shall be moving on to our next question from WhatsApp. And with us we have our beloved guest, Imam or Shaykh Abid Khan. Now, let's move on to our next question. Is it haram to manage a resort hotel with people who dress in a manner that is in contradiction with the Sharia, including serving alcohols and, of course, it's free mixing?
I didn't catch all the question,
Okay.
but
So a brother is asking, I would assume the brother works in a hotel or a five-star hotel or resort, and is asking, is it haram? He's using the word haram. Is it haram to manage or work in a resort or a hotel where people are dressed in a manner that is not in compliance with Sharia, and there is free mixing and alcohol is also served?
so in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you are allowed to do your job and to do it as long as your work itself is something which is permissible and ethical. You're doing your job, for example, you're an accounts manager or the like, then that's something which is permissible. What other people do, they're responsible for their actions, you're responsible for your actions. Of course, you will also see some other fatwa out there or statements of scholars in their own place, saying that, for example, in situations where you have, you have the opportunity and options, either because you live in another country altogether, you can do, or there are other options here where you can choose a more spiritually conducive environment, and where the actions are all more aligned with what you feel comfortable with, ethically speaking, then of course one would choose that ordinarily anyway. But where this is the only option, then that would be something which would be permissible, and Allah knows best.
Thank you very much. Will the answer change if the person is clearly specified he's working or she's working as a manager in that resort?
How can the youth today, living in the West, be on deen in troubled environments and with so much fitna in the West?
Apology there, my dear viewers. Perhaps it's a technical error. Once again, apology. Sheikh, I'll come back to you once again. There was a video that's been played. We will inshallah answer the video question. But before that, the brother that was asking the question with regards to the working in a resort, he or she clearly said they're working as a manager. Perhaps we may have missed it. Kindly, if you can clarify again.
So I said it does depend quite a bit on what sort of manager. So I mentioned if they're an accounts manager, for example, managers vary in the nature of what they're managing, so to speak. So I would say questions pertaining to employment are notoriously wide in the degree of variance that are intrinsically embedded in the question. So instead, I'd suggest perhaps the sister or the brother to sit down with a scholar, qualified individual whom they trust and have confidence in and who's qualified, and ensure that the nuances are fleshed out and that they can receive actual guidance and advice which would align with their circumstances and, of course, with the Islamic principles themselves. And Allah knows best.
Thank you very much for that. Now, let's move on swiftly. We have just watched a video question, and basically, Sheikh, the young person is asking, there's too much fitna in the Western country. The only thing I'll object to that question is it's not only specific to Western countries, anywhere in the world, even in Eastern part, some may say worse than Western countries. So there's a lot of fitna. As young person growing up in those kind of environment, how should we protect our Iman, and how can we ensure that we do not compromise with our faith?
Brothers and sisters, what I'd say to you is I'd suggest, humbly suggest, that you try and see wherever you are as being an opportunity and a potential blessing and not a curse. And that's to say that if you're feeling there's fitna somewhere, I'm not saying you specifically go out choosing fitna, nor am I saying that you should accept to have friends which are not your close bosom buddies who are you feel taking you in the wrong direction in life. I'm not referring to that. But I'm saying if you find yourself in a country or place and you're allowed to practice the basics of your religion, you can pray, you can fast, etc., then I would say to you, see that as an opportunity to develop your faith. to develop the depth of your knowledge, your understanding, your education, and to align your commitment with your ideals, your religious commitment with your religious ideals. That's really the solution, because actually, often as they say in English, as we say that the grass is greener on the other side. So while you're saying it seems really bad right now, are you actually sure that if you were to go elsewhere and the fitna, so quote unquote, may present itself in a slightly different way, slightly different color, so to speak? Yes, people may be dressed differently, or what in a way which you consider much more modest, but actually because of a slightly different cultural influence, it just happens, but in a different way altogether. So you do need to be careful. And I myself have seen people, you most certainly, they felt, you know what, maybe I should emigrate to such and such place. And they emigrated over there to, you know, let's say within certain countries within the Middle East. And they found, yes, sure enough, that the issue that they were concerned about was not there, but they found their own religious practice actually diminishing after that. So they were praying while over here in the UK, and their prayers cease to be as frequent, as consistent and regular. As is, you know, less central example, but even the hijab would be, a sister wears it over here, but perhaps when she goes over there, she starts feeling less so reminded of the need to do so. So sometimes things don't work in the most linear way possible. And I just give those two examples by way of example.
Jazakallah khairan for that. Now let's move on to the next question. An interesting question. Do married men have to wear wedding ring?
So I'm not aware of anyone who said it's something that's mandated or obligatory. Indeed, if you go abroad, you will find some scholars, you know, depending on the country and the society that you're in, they may even discourage some men from wearing the wedding ring, because they see it as something which is alien or foreign to the identity within the Muslim circles and the Muslim religiously observant circles. But in reality, as with all such matters, there's almost something of a spectrum in terms of a situation, a country where you'll find it clearly not done by, you know, the Muslims, and most certainly not the religiously observant Muslims. That wearing it in such a society, if you're part of that society, would take on one ruling. Compared to another situation where, you know, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's no distinction, Muslim or non-Muslim. There's no belief attached to that ring, that ring means, you know, there's no some sort of superstitious meaning attached to it, nor is there any sense that this is specifically a Muslim or non-Muslim phenomenon. Then the ruling on it is very much one of permissibility and acceptability. So it does depend on the societal kind of underpinnings and connotations attached to that and the beliefs of it. And this is because the whole ruling is premised and predicated on an Islamic notion or phenomenon known as urf and aada. And the maxim stated by the scholars is al-aada muhakkama, that the customs, they underpin the rulings on issues which are not explicitly stated by the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet. So the Prophet never spoke of a wedding ring per se, but he spoke about doing things just specifically the acts which are describing or kind of the hallmarks of someone who's not Muslim or is Muslim. So in that scenario, it takes on that ruling, then that hadith then would apply. In societies where that's not the case, then inshallah the ruling of permissibility does apply, and Allah knows best.
And just thoughts on that, if someone wants to wear a ring, which type of ring should men not wear?
So yeah, the Prophet Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, he stated that men are to avoid wearing gold, right? So anything which is a pure gold or overriding gold, that means the majority of the ring would be gold, would be impermissible. So one could go for something such as silver, or even if their budget allows, platinum. So that's something which there's a.
You've carefully used. Yeah, Sheikh, sorry, there was a connection issue there.
It's silver.
Okay, I think we have missed the last part. If you can repeat it, please, for us.
I said, so you can wear silver, and if your budget allows it, you could have worn
Okay. I think okay, sorry, I think you froze for a moment. Just literally, I've got 60 seconds. You have used carefully the word avoid. People may perhaps misunderstand. Is it avoid haram, or what's your position?
Yeah, so the scholars are unanimous. It's actually something which is haram for a man to wear, something which is a majority gold jewelry.
Okay. Jazakallah khairan for that. Once again, thank you very much, Sheikh, for giving us your valuable time. Inshallah, we hope to see you again in the future. And apology to our viewers for technical errors today. Inshallah, next week, we hope that it will be resolved. And you're watching Ask Eman, or you're later or now, if you're watching it now, live on Sky 757. You have watched Ask Eman live, not only on Eman Channel, Sky 757, but also on our YouTube and Facebook page. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to all our platforms, social official platforms. Until next time, subhanakallahumma wa hamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.